This Friday, May the 8th, we celebrate 75 years since the declaration of victory in Europe, which saw the end of fighting in the Western Hemisphere at the end of the Second World War. The war continued in the Far East against Japan, but for millions of troops in Europe, it was the end. They could look forward to returning home, of being demobbed, which meant being discharged from military forces, and being allowed to return to their families. It meant they could return to normal jobs too, but of course, so much had changed, so much had been lost, that it took many years for normality to return. After years of saying goodbye, of fearing that loved ones may not come home, it was now time to say hello again and to rebuild family life. This year, VE Day feels particularly special. We share some of the fears that the war generation feared. We're separated from each other and we worry we might not see again some of those whom we love. We're all in danger, to some extent, but we know that there are some who are in greater danger. We salute those who are fighting on the front line today in hospitals and care homes. Perhaps it is this sense of facing a dangerous time together, possibly the greatest since the Second World War, that has led so many of us to being inspired by Captain Tom. As a 100-year-old World War II veteran, his efforts to raise money to support NHS charities has captured our imaginations. In celebrating VE Day, we're also looking forward to a day when we can feel that the time of greatest danger is over and we can be reunited again.
It really was the most brilliant day. It was 1945. It was the 8th of May. It is a date forever remembered as the day when Germany finally surrendered.
The war across Europe had come to an end. A war in which many had lost family or friend. It was a day of much celebration in towns and cities across many a nation.
Very soon after they heard the great news, communities came together and really let loose. Folk, they rejoiced. There was a great atmosphere, with many a pub running right out of beer.
Raucous revellers filled Trafalgar Square, where hugs and kisses with strangers were shared, as, on the palace balcony, King George appeared. The massed crowds below him chanted and cheered.
Soldiers and sailors were dancing the conga, the line which they formed growing longer and longer. People danced in the streets and danced in the parks. They danced and they danced until way after dark.
From out of folks' windows, lights dared to glow, and many a gallon of cheap champagne flowed. A kaleidoscope of colour lit up the night, as did blazing bonfires, which were burning so bright.
People held parties right there in the street, with sweet and savoury dishes laid out to eat. There was hominy pie and corned beef hash, bread with beef dripping and faggots with mash.
There were glory buns, Welsh cakes and bread spread with jam, apple-bound Betty, plum charlotte and even prune flan. There were scones, carrot cookies and eggless fruitcake, rock buns, jam tarts, all hastily baked.
The war had raged on for almost 6 years, and during that time it had caused terror and tears. It was a day of thanksgiving, a day of relief, but for some, just another day of deep-rooted grief.
The people of Europe were finally free, and many a face was shining with glee. At the Western Front the fighting had ceased, and all throughout Europe there was now much welcomed peace.
Thanks to the sacrifice of so many selfless servicemen and women during the Second World War, we have been able to enjoy peace and stability throughout most of Europe for 75 years. Put in a historical context, that is unprecedented and has helped encourage economic growth that has been unparalleled in European history. Thanks to this peace, Europe has grown increasingly tolerant and united, and in Western Europe, every individual has benefited from liberal governments, democracy, and individual freedoms. We have so much to be grateful for, and this is why we're celebrating today. In the midst of 1941, at the heart of the Second World War, Winston Churchill visited Harrow School and spoke to the boys. And he stated, "Never give in. Never give in. Never, 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 never. In nothing, great or small, large or petty. Never give in except to convictions of honour and good sense." Well, thank goodness that our forebearers rallied to this call in order to conquer the evils of fascism so long ago. We must always be mindful of the fact that those who defended Britain in the 1940s and secured the liberation of Europe placed their own safety and security second to the safety and security of others. Their sacrifices have benefited so many, and this is a lesson that is more potent right now than it has ever been. So we must remember, and we must emulate those who have come before us, so that we can build on the triumphs of 1945 to create a world we can be more proud of, and to hand securely on to the generations that come after us. We have much to do across the world to repay our debt to those who've come before us. And perhaps today's celebrations should remind us of our own responsibilities and obligations to future generations. Happy VE Day, and here's to a bright, peaceful, stable, and happy future